Buongiorno a tutti, oggi un avvenimento importantissimo, una conversazione con Michael Rother, chitarrista storico del Krautrock, noi, Harmonia, Kraftwerk, tutti i gruppi più importanti. Come sempre io faccio questa premessa, i sottotitoli mi auguro che ci siano o verranno autogenerati, comunque io parlerò in inglese e presumo che sia fattibile per tutti ascoltare e capire. Quindi buon ascolto a tutti. So, Mr. Rother, sorry, Michael, thank for your time.
That's fine. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for your time, because for me it's very important to talk with you, because you're a legend for me, because I am a Krautrock fan, and especially for Noi and Harmonia. In the later conversation, I speak with Rodilius. So for me, it was an occasion to know about some things about your recording with Moebius and Rodilius. But the first thing, how are you now?
Oh, thank you very much for asking. My cough is nearly gone. Maybe it's coming back again. It's a strange weather.
Yes.
And but I think I can get rid of the cough by inhalation. And the original fear is not necessary. COVID is around everywhere, we know, but also quite normal sicknesses like cold still exist. It's not only COVID.
Yes, it was maybe easy bronchitis, so there's no way to stay in doubt. The first thing was, my first question is, have you some project? Because I know now it is released your box set, your solo album. So for me, it is a wonderful gift from my wife. Now you composing, you made something about it, or you stay quiet for now?
Oh no, there's always music in my life, and I'm busy recording new music. I've been recording music in the past months already with my partner. She's very talented in music, and this is a completely new project. It has nothing to do with dreaming or with my former solo projects. But I guess some similarities will always show up because of my limited range of musical ideas. But yes, the times just fly. It's I'm going to talk to a film director early next week about some film music, and also a project which I don't want to talk about in detail, which regards to Dieter Möbius, my late partner in Harmonia. And this is also a very important project where it's, of course, I'm always happy to remember my former friends, the friends who have passed on, like Jackie Liebezeit. When there was this commemoration concert I joined, that was already 1.5 years ago. And Dieter Möbius also. And of course, you may have seen that my partner in Kraftwerk, Florian Schneider, passed last year, and I wrote a piece about him. So yes, busy times. But for me, of course, I'm fortunate that when live concerts are no longer possible, like in these days, and I'm not sure if we are going to be able to play concerts in the coming months, like it is the idea, but I can always work on music in my home, wherever I am. And this is, of course, my great advantage. I am independent of space, of place, and music will always be part of my life.
I think so. because I think about your solo career. You said limited. You're not limited. Your range of sounds, for me, it is very important. You're not so limited. You're invented a kind of guitar sounds. If I talk about your album Cats and Music, sometimes it reminds me a flavor of Robert Fripp sounds of guitar, but it's not necessary to be recall this. Your personality with your sound, it is unique. If I think the first works with Kraftwerk, the first album with the red road cone, Ruckzuck, these sounds, it's yours, not...
Oh, please let me interrupt you. That's a mistake. I am not on the first Kraftwerk album at all.
Yes, it was, the first album was Tone Float. Sorry.
No, also on the first Kraftwerk album, I played Ruckzuck with Florian Schneider and Klaus Dinger live. I'm not on the album.
This news is good because some people said you're inside, but now it is important that you said that, because it is very important, because you played with Klaus Dinger in TV. I don't remember which is the television. Maybe it was Beat. I don't remember. And
it was Beat Club was the name of the TV show.
Yes, with another piece of music, Truck Stop Gondolero. It was another one. Sorry for this, but it is very important because these two albums, Ralph Hütter, I don't understand why he don't want to make a remaster and write it down the right personnel on it. But it's not a problem. Your music with Noi and another thing, it's very full of personality. And for me, the alchemy between you and Klaus Dinger was unique. What is your memories in those days?
Oh, I could go on for a long time talking about the exchange with Klaus Dinger. But to put it in short words, I think we had two sides and both of us shared the feelings of the other side, but had different qualities. Klaus enjoyed my melodies and my harmonic approach just as much as I enjoyed his drumming and his forward-reaching and sometimes even quite aggressive style. I didn't share the aggressiveness, that Klaus uttered, for instance, in the vocals to the track "Hero," were his reactions to things that went wrong in his life. We had very different characters. Klaus was a completely different character, and I must say, quite honestly, that I did not consider Klaus a friend. I could not be a friend with someone who has that combination of traits of character. But as an artist, he was just amazing, and as a team, we complemented one another. And that was, I think, the mystery. We both knew that the other one had qualities that one self did not have. So it was clear that Klaus was strong on the rhythmic and strong on the dramatic side, and I delivered what I could on the melodic, harmonic, and sound contributions. And together, of course, we must always remember to mention Conny Plank. we were dependent on Conny Plank to recreate those 3 albums we did with him. And that was a team that was able, with some luck, I'm sure we were also quite lucky that we were able to record those albums, because we were always very close to failure for different reasons. Maybe we will talk about that. But it was just a team of 3 individuals with Conny Plank that all the participants introduced very special talents to the production, and working with Klaus was, contrary to what many people believe, quite easy, at least in the 70s. We nearly always agreed musically, totally. The differences in our thoughts about everything else were something else. Like outside the studio, we didn't get along so well, but in the studio, working on music, being very focused on getting our visions of music on the tape, we didn't waste time discussing or arguing. We just did music, and that was great. Many people think, yeah, we've heard about these fights between Klaus and Michael. Those were all outside the studio, but on the musical level, we never fought.
In your words, I want to explain 2 concepts. The first, in Noi 75, the song Hero is full of anger, and it was recall a Proto-Punk. So it was a song by Klaus Dinger, not in your style. And I think about your words. The second thing, Conny Plank. Conny Plank was an important man for many, many bands. Noi, Harmonia, and so on. And the first thing, yes, I can understand now why you didn't join La Düsseldorf. If you were in the La Düsseldorf, maybe the music was more quiet and morbid, and I think it was a good move to go solo.
Let me first maybe put some things straight. You may know that Klaus Dinger and I wanted to put our music on stage in 1972 after we released the first album.
Yes.
And the 2 of us, I think it's easy to understand even for a non-musician, it was not possible for one person playing drums and one person playing guitar or bass to reproduce the sound of the first Noi album on stage. So we were looking for other musicians, and it was very difficult because the musicians, we didn't check too many. Actually, it was 2 people, but they didn't fit into the picture. And then I had this memory of hearing a Cluster song, because we knew the band Cluster. We played together as Kraftwerk, and they also worked with Conny Plank. And it was this track Im Süden, which was in my mind. And I thought the musical content of a track like Im Süden, the melodic and harmonic world that was presented there, this could help me recreate the ideas I had for Noi on stage. And so I decided to go to Forst and to visit Rydelius and Möbius. And I jammed with Rydelius, and I found out that I was even more excited about the collaboration with Harmonia, which we then founded, than working with Klaus Dinger in Noi. It was never on the cards that I would join La Düsseldorf. La Düsseldorf was the project Klaus Dinger started when I left Düsseldorf and when I started working with Redelius and Möbius on Harmonia. And so he was maybe a bit sad about my departure, but it was a logical decision for me. I needed to add more depth to the music. And Klaus Dinger then started La Düsseldorf, and this was not a Neu music without Michael Rother. It was something different. It had qualities of its own. Like Harmonia was not Neu without Klaus Dinger. So we are both artists. We were both artists and were able to create also other sounds with other musicians being involved. And La Düsseldorf, it was strange because Klaus really wanted to work with me, even when I was working with Harmonia. And he visited us and he tried to convince Harmonia, Redelius, Möbius, and me to join forces in a supergroup with 6 musicians, Klaus and his brother and Hans Lampe, Redelius, Möbius, and myself. But it was musically not something that was desirable for me. And also on a personal level, it was, how should I say it without being harmful to Klaus? No one liked him in Forst. His behavior, he was at that time already getting very big-headed and arrogant and acting like an impression of some superstar. Punk. No, superstar more. That was not the punk attitude. Not at all punk. It was more like being great. It was something of a superstar behavior. And we were not willing to go along with that. And so this project never started. And I was very happy working with Redelius and Möbius in Harmonia. And that went on for 3 years. And I only met Klaus in the studio again to record Noise 75. And talking about the track Hero, I already explained what Klaus expressed in the vocals, in the lyrics of the track. It was his frustration of all the things that went wrong in his life. And it was an example of, psychologically speaking, of his idea that everyone else was to blame, but not him. He didn't blame himself for things that went wrong. So he said, fuck the company, fuck the press, fuck the program. I was always very interested in psychology, and that's a point where we really were not on one page. I try to, I'm sure I don't always manage to do that, but to have enough self-criticism to know when I am part of the problem and not only the others. So that was something that was a bit difficult with Klaus, but leaving that aside, it was wonderful for me to play these guitars on Hero, because what I could relate to was not the frustration he was singing about, but the dynamic forward propulsion of the song. This strong, powerful machine was just great to play guitars with. And so I am very happy about my guitars on Hero and the other tracks on the second side of Noise 75.
Yes, Noise 75, it was a peak of your career with Noise. If I think about Easy, the first song, the classic motoric sounds, it is an album with a classic alchemy. It was two minds play. And what have you said about Dinger is not a critic. For me, in your words, it is a words of a person who collaborate with him. And it was a fortune for you and for Cluster and for Harmonia do not to play with Dinger, because I think that it was Klaus Dinger play in those albums. There's no the classic sounds, because you collaborated with Cluster in Zuckerzeit. Your collaboration begin with this, and for me, it was a beautiful album.
May I interrupt you? Because unfortunately I have to correct you again. I will try to clear up the mistake about Zuckerzeit. When I was working with Harmonia, with Redelius and Möbius, and it was the time when I went to Conny Plank's studio to record with Klaus Dinger, the third Neu album, I left my gear, some of my gear, in Forst. And while I was away, Redelius and Möbius decided to also record an album. It was actually two half solo albums. One each of Redelius and Möbius each had, 6 tracks or 8 tracks on their own. And so they always switched, one track Redelius, one Möbius, one track Redelius. And because I allowed them to use my recording gear and some instruments, they decided to give me credit as producer. I never asked for that. It was not agreed. It was nothing that I asked them to do. It was, and I thought, oh, well, now it's already released. That's okay. It's nice. It was like a thank you of the two guys. But on a deeper level, you see the result of our collaboration in Zuckerzeit, as I know the result of my collaboration with Redelius and Möbius also in tracks like Easy and the Neu 75 album. It is a process of mutual inspiration and influence. So, Zuckerzeit is quite different from the earlier Cluster albums or the works they both did. And that was, I guess, the result of their reflections on the work with me. And my work with Klaus Dinger on Neu 75 also reflected my ideas, what I learned about music working with Redelius and Möbius. So
it is very important to put the right things, because some people think about, Mr. Rother work on Zuckerzeit. No, it was a misunderstanding. So it is important that you explain the right things, because in those days your was here. You're right here. And my curiosity. Have you ever met, and for me, it's sure, David Bowie? Have you ever met David Bowie?
No. It was a strange story, because you may know that he invited me to join him in the studio.
Session of Heroes.
Yes, we spoke on the phone. We had a long conversation. It was in the summer of 1977. My first solo album had just been released, Flammende Herzen.
The best one.
I was, pardon?
Flammende Herzen, for me, it was the best one. And another, but Flaming Heart. The translation is Flaming Heart.
Yes, well, maybe I should explain Flammende Herzen. This is also the name a certain flower has in Germany. It has these little buds which look like hearts. And that's why there was this a piece of art in my room, which was a present from someone living there. And it said Flammende Herzen on this piece of art about this plant.
Okay.
And when I was working on the music, I thought, oh, that's a nice
Title.
expression, a nice title. Although at the time, nearly everyone just said, oh no, how can he use this cheesy word, Flammende Herzen, something so emotional? Maybe for Italians it was never a problem, but for German intellectuals and nerds and people into modern music, this was a stumble block. It was really it was like a slap in the face. And I remember my label manager, the owner of Sky Records, he said, oops, well, as long as the music is great, the people will accept the title. I always enjoy playing with words. You know, language is something I really enjoy. And to have the idea of being not stuck to the first value of a word, but to have the idea that there could be a second level in the meaning, there could be a different meaning, like Katzenmusik, for instance, the third solo album. For me, as a person who loves cats, I always see that I am close to cats. I just love these creatures.
Me too.
But in Germany, Katzenmusik is an expression not favorable for the music. It is used for the sounds that have similarities with cats fighting, like screeching and
okay.
so when I used Katzenmusik, it was, okay, you will be confused because some people said, why does he call his music Katzenmusik? It is not disharmonic at all. It is friendly music.
Yes.
And the people did not see that the deeper meaning was the meaning that is important to me, the love for cats. So it is cat music. It is, anyway, the long story about words. I think it's a good idea if you look behind language and words and do not stick to the surface always of things you hear and like certain expressions. You try to understand where do they come from, what do they really mean. Sorry, I'm getting a bit distracted.
No, there's no problem.
We were talking about David Bowie. You were asking about David Bowie. And so in summer of 1977, I was so totally happy about the huge success my first solo album had, experiencing. And then suddenly the phone rang and somebody, English-speaking person, said, hello, I'm calling on behalf of David Bowie, and he would like you to join him. Would that be of interest to you? And I said, yes, that sounds nice. The best thing is that I speak to David myself, and then we can discuss things. And so I had this long phone conversation with David Bowie. We were very, very enthusiastic about working together. To be honest, I was never a David Bowie fan like Klaus Dinger. He was a huge David Bowie fan, but I know of his work with Brian Eno, and Brian Eno was also in the studio. So I thought this would be a creative combination that could lead to extraordinary music. And so I said, yes, I'm totally happy to come. And what instruments would you like me to bring? And we discussed. I also proposed to invite Jackie Liebezeit, the drummer on Flammende Herzen. And then the strange thing, after we finished the phone call, it was clear to me, okay, I'm going to join them very soon in the studio. And then another person called who was a sort of manager for David Bowie, and he wanted to talk to me about money. You must know, in Germany, in my field of musicians, we never had that kind of professional group of people working with you. Like in England, in Britain, every band had a stage manager, road
Yes.
manager, a manager taking
Accounts.
care of. Yes. In Germany, I still live that life. I try to do everything myself. It is a different approach. It is about freedom, about control also, and maybe also the idea of having a broader life than only sitting at the music, and to take care of how the music leaves the studio, goes to the public.
So for
And
you, it was strange. It was a strange thing.
well, my problem was that I couldn't tell this person, oh, well, then you should talk to my manager about the money and the contract. And my reaction was very simple and very amateurish and like a hippie. I said, if the music is great, you don't have to worry about the contract or the money. That was my attitude. I was not after the money. For me, it was always with the people I worked on music about trust and then sharing. That it's very easy. If you have Klaus Dinger and Michael Rother working together, we shared 50-50, or Harmonia, we shared 1/3 each. And my attitude was probably very surprising and even sounded threatening to this manager, because this is not the way managers work. Like, this is something dangerous. If I join the group in the studio and we record something great, and then later I say, well, if you want my guitar on this music, then you have to pay me double. Like what maybe some people would do, but this would never have crossed my mind. And anyway, this was probably so wrong in the way of making the collaboration possible. And the next thing I heard was a phone call from another person calling on behalf of David Bowie, telling me that I was no longer required in the studio. And I was very surprised, because that didn't make sense after the conversation with David, which I had. But because I was at that time already starting to work on Sterntaler, my second solo album,
Yes.
I remember not wasting much time being sad or confused. I just thought, well, that's strange, but I can't make sense of it. Nowadays you would think, okay, if David Bowie has changed his mind, I can write him an email and he can confirm it. Like, I would ask him, hey, your manager called me and said, or your personal assistant called me and said you changed your mind. Is that the case? If so, no problem, but just confirm. But back then there was no direct connection. And so that's how the collaboration never happened. It was strange. I didn't think about it for many years, but it must have been in the early 2000s when I read an interview or several interviews with David Bowie in the British press, where he said, oh, and I invited Michael to join me, but unfortunately he turned my invitation down. And I thought, that's strange. Why does he say I turned him down? That was, and so trying to understand how this can happen and remembering the conversation with the manager, I think that somebody in his field decided to prevent us from collaborating to avoid possible problems. Also, for David Bowie. Also, we must know that in the 70s, his album sales were going down. The fans at that time, it's very different now because the Berlin trilogy is so in high regards. But in the 70s, the fans were not happy with his move away
change
from
of
Ziggy
change of
Stardust.
sounds. Yes,
And so maybe the people were, his managers, the people around him thought, if we allow this collaboration to happen, David could be influenced into doing more crazy things and non-commercial things, and we will be out of work. So this is something that makes sense to me. But yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't. He invited me to visit him and his wife in New York, but that unfortunately didn't happen in time.
Your words and your attitude, it is a great wise words, because your attitude, not in music, I think that about my life, because I am a musician, not now because I'm working and I can't play, but in life, your attitude is very good. I want to be like you, because yesterday in my work they gave me bad news. So I want to use your attitude to say, if these things doesn't work, I don't have to be sad or nothing. Because when you're in my work, because I work in a supermarket, because I am a greenkeeper in a golf club, but with this pandemic COVID, I must change. And yesterday they said to me, "Dear Matteo, your contract is not to go." And for me, because I had a family with 2 sons, it was a very sad day. But today, with your words, maybe the things for me change. Your attitude is very important. And for me, speak with people like you, not a superstar, but for me, you're a superstar. It is important. And these words, you said, it is for me very important. It is not a fake thing. It is a real feeling about it.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Matteo. I, of course, keep my fingers firmly crossed that...
Thank you for your time. You're a gentle person, and I hope that you came to Italy to play.
Yes, I hope we will someday, maybe later this year, not too soon, but later this year. I would love to do more concerts in Italy. I like the country very much.
So I can, if you will come to Italy, I want to know you and have an autograph and a chat with you, because you're a kind person. And thank you for your time. It was important for me. Thank you, Michael.
Good luck, and thank you for this conversation, and take care. Be careful.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.